Welcome everyone to the Bran'sTech podcast. We're so glad to have you here today. This podcast episode is in both audio and video form. The audio form is found anywhere you can find podcasts, but to check out the video, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Tansen Talks. This episode will begin in just one moment after these messages, so please stay tuned. Hello everyone, this is your friend Brandon K. Hedgepeth here. For those of you who don't know me, I am also a lifelong learner and communicator, as well as the host and creator of Bran'sTech, and I'm so glad to have each and every one of you here today listening or watching today's interview. I'm excited to have you all here today. And so let me go ahead and take a moment to introduce today's amazing guest here on the platform. So my guest is in his third year of computer engineering at Virginia Commonwealth University, but he also has so many more interests to include being a programmer, gamer, and even a sci-fi connoisseur and miniature painter. Please welcome my guest today, Zachary Edicola. Thank you for being here.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm extremely excited to have you on for the day. And so, first of all, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Real excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you here. And so, before we go ahead and get into the actual interview, I did want to allow a moment for you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the listening audience or viewing.
Yeah. So as Brandon said, I am a third-year computer engineering student at Virginia Commonwealth University. I kind of have always been a real tech guy. I really love computers. I've got an unknown number of them here in my room and down in my basement, always on. I have my own servers, run my own web pages, that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm a big techie. Great big nerd, as you might say.
Well, I'm glad that you are here today to put the tech into Bran'sTech today. I'm just, it's so interesting whenever I guess I have the tech people on, because it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's such a rarity, because I know even for a lot of tech people don't claim to be tech people.
That is true. Sometimes tech people get the unfortunate pleasure of being the family or group IT person, when sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge and a struggle, but I don't know, I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, been there, done that, but definitely I always enjoy it, even when it is a little bit of a challenge sometimes, just a little bit.
Certainly.
Well, yeah, like I said, I'm definitely excited to get into this, and so I guess let's see where I can begin. I guess this time I will begin by asking, so right now you are you're in your third year at Virginia Commonwealth University, VSU. And so I guess, what are some of the things that you plan to do during this semester and going throughout your junior year?
Yeah, so this is actually going to be my first year at VCU. I'm a transfer student. I spent my first 2 years at community college, so this is going to be a new experience for me, going to a 4-year private institution like VCU. But I'm real excited because one of the things that I'm really excited about is that I'm really getting into classes that are real specific to my major. Up until now, there's been a lot of general education stuff, and while I still enjoy it, I mean, it's definitely a lot more interesting to get into the more deeper classes, so to speak. Yeah, one of the things that I'm really excited about is I'm taking a class specific to hardware description language, which is kind of computer programming that is related to the programming of actual circuits through code, which is something you don't really hear about too often. So
that's actually really cool. Definitely, first and foremost, for everyone who has been watching and listening to my stuff, you all should definitely know by now that a lot of my information that I know is all very history focused and information focused because I am definitely a major history connoisseur. But this stuff has always like really fascinated me, even if it is like a little bit above like what I do. But that class sounds so fascinating though, and I'm sure you're pretty excited for it too.
Oh yeah, I'm super stoked. I got to do a little bit of it in a sort of introductory course a couple semesters ago, and I'm really itching for more.
Well, I definitely think that you're going to definitely thrive with this semester. And for you being at VC, so are you going to live there or commute there or do off campus? So I guess what is your current plan, I guess, for your first year there?
Yeah, so I've lived in Richmond my whole life, so I'm planning on staying at home, commuting. It's only about a 15-minute drive. It should be okay.
Well, that's nice being like right there. And is that the reason that you chose VC, or that just happened to be a really gentle convenience?
Kind of a mix of both. I've always been real interested in VCU. I've kind of lived in and around the city for a long time, so know the area pretty well. Beyond that, I'm a real big fan of the basketball team. Go VCU Rams! So that was definitely a plus as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that just sort of worked out. And so since you mentioned the basketball team, are you into basketball out of curiosity?
I'm a big watcher. I played a little bit as a kid, but I wasn't too good.
Been there and done that with baseball and I guess soccer, but definitely, yeah, sports watching and listening are definitely two different skill sets altogether. And certainly, I think for most cases, I'd rather be on the watching side than the playing side. But maybe one of these days I'll go back into sports doing something unrealistic, but maybe. But overall, I'm glad to hear that you're really excited for this semester and going into the year. And so, for your 2 years in community college, how was that experience?
It was actually really good. It was kind of a born out of necessity type thing. I graduated high school in 2020, right when kind of COVID hit. So community college was kind of a best choice for me at that point. But I was at community college, I did well. It was definitely a lot less expensive than going to a 4-year institution. Beyond that, I was able to get my associate's degree in engineering, and now I'm transferring to a 4-year institution to finish out that bachelor's. And I don't really see any downside. So,
well, I'm really glad that path has been working for you, and I really can't wait to see like how you go into the future. But now I guess let me go ahead and backtrack. So, what really got you into wanting to do computer engineering?
Yeah, so initially I was actually leaning more towards, computer science, which really leans heavily into kind of the programming aspect. As a high school student, I was a self-taught programmer. I started myself off with Python, as many people do these days, and then kind of branched out into a whole bunch of other different languages, PHP. I learned, some web development with HTML and CSS. But, once I got to community college, I started hearing and learning a little more about what happens in terms of computer hardware. This is the bare bones, what actually runs this code that we're writing, in these machines. And I found the concept fascinating that, down at the bottom level, it's just literally just ones and zeros, on the computer board that is making all this happen. So I took a fundamentals of computer engineering course, which was what they called a building blocks course. So at the beginning of the semester, we started out with transistors. These are the things that are quite literally the smallest component in your computer. Everything is made out of transistors, all the chips, and from there, we actually evolved through the semester, and by the end, we were able to understand and even design our own microprocessor, the bare bones of a basic computer. So working from the bottom up like that to a computer that could be programmed, with traditional code was pretty rewarding.
That's actually really cool. And I mean, for me who loves like all the ins and outs of literally anything and everything, especially computers, that just sounds so cool to really start from like you said, the bare basics and just build up from there. And so yeah, did you enjoy being in that class? Because I know I probably would.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was definitely favorite class that I took in my first 2 years. Yeah, definitely. And one of the nice things about that class too is that there was a lab component to it as well, so it was a lot of hands-on learning as well. Although wiring some of these chips together on these breadboards got a little bit like spaghetti sometimes, but it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, well, I definitely could see where that can go towards that route very easy in a very easy way, especially considering that I'm sure many of your classmates were like in all different parts of of their learning, whether just starting or maybe just finishing, and everywhere in between. So definitely different journeys all around, and so yeah. So for you, I guess when you're going through, your 2 years and really like getting further into the idea of you wanting to do computer engineering, I guess what really made you stay and think, okay, this is definitely 100% what I want to do, especially as opposed to my mind drew a blank. But what was it that really made you want to stay with computer engineering as opposed to computer science?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I've continued to enjoy computer programming, and I have to take a couple computer programming classes, as you might expect, in computer engineering still. But the thing about computer engineering that I really like is that it is really kind of a hands-on field. Even though we're working with a lot of virtual elements and digital elements that maybe you can't directly see, it still is concrete hardware most of the time that you're working with. Whereas with computer programming, it's pretty much always lines of code on a screen. Which, while I do enjoy that, it can get a little monotonous there.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And like you said, I mean, computers are definitely they're a very physical thing, which have a lot of physical components, which just happen to have a lot of stuff on the back end that, many average people just, don't really see because they just don't have to. It's sort of been all figured out. And so I'm glad to hear that you really liked the hardware aspect, and that's what really decided to, I guess, to hold you into computer engineering. And so after you finish your fourth year of college, your second year at VCU, so what are your plans for using your computer engineering degree?
Yeah, it's kind of up in the air at the moment. I'm thinking of maybe pursuing the master's. VCU has an accelerated master's program, so I could be working through that. But beyond that, I would love to look into a career either in the aerospace field or the United States has a pretty booming chip manufacture business right now. There was some recent legislation passed that is really kind of stimulating growth in that area. So it could be interesting to find a job in that field as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was going to say, it's like we just had this major, like I said, this major legislation that had just passed to help that out, and definitely will, help hopefully establish United States as a place to go for all things computer chips and manufacturing and all the above. And so, that's a great industry to go in right then, but especially also, like you said too, aerospace. And so have you always had a sort of interest in aerospace, or is that just something that, like, as a separate interest or together? I'm just sort of curious.
I've always been a space kid. I was a space kid before I was a computer kid. Really, I always really interested in space and in aerospace and in general. Really, but before I really found my interest in computer engineering, I was actually planning on being either a mechanical or aerospace engineer prior to my entry into college. It was really kind of in my first and second semester that I really found computer engineering as my go-to field.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so, at least if you were to go into that route, one of the many, of course, routes that you can potentially go into, that'll sort of be able to help, to help you sort of fulfill your childhood interests while also doing the passions that you love. And so, but I mean, you have endless possibilities of where you can go. I mean, especially since it's such in need, field right now. I mean, technically all the time, but definitely at least right now too.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot more computers and things these days than people really kind of get. There's microcontrollers and just about everything, and you need computer engineers to make these application-specific integrated circuits for all sorts of different devices. So definitely a lot of wide applicability there.
Yeah, for sure. And what's so amazing though is not only do you have endless possibilities with this and so many different combining interests here, but you also have so many other interests as well. Like we said in your introduction, you're also a gamer and really into sci-fi and also miniature paint. I mean, like, how do you have the time?
Short answer is I don't. It really kind of it's both a good thing and a bad thing having as many hobbies as I do. Mostly because there isn't enough time in the day, especially definitely during the school year. It definitely gets a little tough to kind of squeeze them all in. So almost got to set up a rotation. Oh, okay, today's Tuesday. I gotta do my miniature painting. Oh, today's Wednesday. It's time to read some sci-fi. So it definitely takes a lot of juggling, but I definitely took full advantage of my summer break to kind of pursue some of those interests.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you were able to make the most of that, of your summer 2022. And so I guess my next question would be in relation to your sci-fi interests. Have you always been interested in sci-fi everything?
Oh yeah, it kind of comes hand in hand with the space interest as a kid. Sci-fi and space are pretty similar. Sci-fi is kind of out there, but beyond that, I've always loved sci-fi books. I read Dune, I read Ender's Game. All these different kind of books. Beyond that, I loved sci-fi movies. Whether it's classic Alien or Blade Runner or honestly, really anything sci-fi. Star Wars, Star Trek, all that sort of thing.
That's actually really cool, and yeah, it almost makes me like a little sad that it took me such a long time to get into literally like anything in any relation to any of that. I mean, even then, I'm nowhere close to any of that, which is, I know for a lot of people, I know, highly disappointing, because I know quite literally everyone I know is all really into everything. So I'm slowly catching up. I've seen one Star Wars movie thus far, maybe before the time I graduate to college, that I could actually have seen at least the original trilogy. I think that's all of my friends' hopes for me. But that's so great that you were able to, and that it was able to help influence your interest for space as well. And so does your ability to do miniature paint tie into that, or is that a completely separate interest altogether?
It's sort of a separate interest. Miniature painting is kind of a relaxing thing for me. It's nice to, put on some music and, pull out the paints and just kind of work on this teeny tiny little miniature. Yeah, I've recently over the summer I've done probably 20 to 25 miniatures. Part of a set that I'm working on. So. Yeah, it's definitely a more relaxing thing for me than it is um, not doing it for money or anything. It's just kind of something chill that I do.
That's pretty cool. And like I said, for me, I definitely have so many interests that I see that for myself. Like I love writing. I love speaking with people. Obviously, and there's just so many interests, and I'm so glad that you're able to hopefully have like a nice balance between between the different stuff that you want to do. Because and that you're able to have so many like really great interests. So that's just really cool in my opinion.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed kind of exploring all these different hobbies. It's kind of a wide variety of things. I definitely like to keep it interesting and kind of explore a broad variety of things.
That's really cool. And then and sort of like we were saying earlier, you're also a gamer, so I presume video games. And so have you always been interested in that as well, or does that sort of come as time has allowed over the years?
Yeah, it kind of came over time. I didn't play as many in elementary and middle school as I did in high school. But once I got into high school, started working. I built my own computer out of different component off the shelf parts, and started playing games. Played a lot of sci-fi games. I'm trying out for a collegiate team for Rainbow Six at VCU. So that's pretty exciting. I think there's an upcoming tournament at the end of this year that maybe we're looking to participate in. I definitely like team-based games. So yeah.
That's actually really cool. And best of luck with trying out for the Rainbow Six League. I know VCU has a pretty big standing, I believe, in esports all around. So I definitely hope that you're able to get that and thrive with it.
Yeah, I'm certainly very interested and very excited about that possibility. But beyond that, I obviously being a sci-fi guy, I play a lot of sci-fi games. I fly in my own spaceship around in Elite Dangerous. I use space magic in Destiny 2. I'm a big Destiny 2 player. Yeah.
That's actually, like I said, that's just so cool. Especially since you were able to do all this stuff, and then for some of it that you use on a PC, able to do on a computer you build. That is really cool. It's like you are mastering the game that you enjoy playing on the computer that you built. I don't know what's more, I guess, I don't even know the words, but I don't know what's more cooler than that. Just being able to do that. Have you always wanted to build a computer?
Oh yeah. I've always been interested in building my own computer. This is the one that I'm on today is the second iteration, I think, of my computer over the years. I've kind of upgraded it piece by piece from the original that I built, and I recently handed down my old one to my younger brother. Stepping down to him was pretty nice. But yeah, I've always been interested in computer hardware, and for me, designing the PC that really fits my needs was a pretty rewarding experience. Doing all the research on all the different component parts, and looking for good deals, and kind of stalking the catalogs, as it were, looking for the best option for me.
That is so cool. And so And so I'm going to actually sidetrack for a second. So for you, what really happened first? You starting to build your original computer, or you self-teaching yourself how to program?
I definitely started programming before I built my PC. I had a laptop that I used for school that I would write code on. Didn't run particularly well, but it ran. But it was really once I got my own computer that I really started learning programming, especially since when I got into things like web development, you need a dedicated computer, at least for hosting things. So that was definitely a influencing factor there.
Wow, that's awesome. And come to think of it, earlier when we were speaking, that you mentioned too that you also, you have a ton of computers, and that you run servers and anything and everything. And so for you, was this something where you did them out of necessity, or more so because you just wanted to for some of them, or is it like a little mixture of both?
It's kind of a mixture of both. When I first started out, it was more so that I wanted to learn exactly how to do it, and I needed the space to do it in. But over time, I built a couple web pages, started running a couple services, and at that point, I needed to keep them up all the time, so I needed some hardware for that. So yeah, now I run two decommissioned enterprise Dell servers. They live in my basement. They heat up the basement pretty well, like a space heater. Generate a lot of heat there and suck up a lot of electricity. Pretty loud, but they're mine, and I love them very much. They're my they're my children, you could say.
That is so cool. And I know I'm saying that a lot, but I'm just so intrigued by all of this. And so, like, when you decided to do those, were those ones that because I know you mentioned that they are former Dell Enterprise ones, and so did you sort of, I guess, reconstruct some of them, or did you use them as is and just modify from there?
Yeah, they're mostly standard. Most of these big data centers that have racks and racks and racks of these. Over time when they get replaced, they just kind of pull them out, throw them on eBay or throw them on Craigslist or wherever, and I just kind of bought it as is. But over time, maybe I've added an extra hard drive or replaced a network adapter or something like that. But for the most part, they're pretty much standard. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, out of curiosity, because I'm just so intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
So, out of all of the computers you currently have, how much would you say that you have out of all the ones you still have in existence?
Let's see here. So I've got a Dell R810, that's my main server, followed up by a Dell R420, which is my storage server. Down there as well, I have a custom-built PC acting as a server, which is for my game servers. Beyond that, I've got an Intel Atom NUC, which stands for Next Unit of Computing. It's basically a little tiny miniature computer there. I think it was used as a router at one point. Up here in my room, I've got my gaming PC, of course. I've got a HP Tower server that isn't running at the moment just because I don't need it right now. I've got, let's see, a Core 2 Duo Intel PC that isn't running as well. Mostly use it for parts here and there. I've got a Raspberry Pi. I've got a couple, I don't know if you would even call these computers, but they're basically Wi-Fi dev boards. They're ESP8266s. Let's see. I think that's it for now. Quite a few.
That is just amazing. And I'm sure, like, when you were, getting ready to, I guess, like, to prepare for college, I'm sure you were thinking, like, it's like, which one of these many computers are, like, I guess, the the priority ones. Which ones are the but I like that each of them for the most part have a specialty to them, and so not too redundant for any of them. And so I guess your family never needs a tech person.
Yeah, I'm on speed dial for sure.
Yeah, I bet. And so for you, how did you even start learning how to do all of this? Because I know you mentioned that for some of the stuff you are self-taught, and so was all of it self-taught, like for wanting to do all of this? Because this, like I said, this just truly is just so fascinating.
As far as programming goes, it's pretty much completely self-taught. I didn't take a real programming class until I got into college, and it was a Java class. I didn't like that one very much, but as far as the other languages that I've learned, it's been primarily self-taught. In terms of the servers and systems administration stuff, I learned some of that from a relative that does similar stuff to what I do, kind of at-home computing type things. But a lot of that still is some self-teaching, on the internet or through other resources.
That's so cool that you were able to really hone in on your ability to like look up the stuff, do research, and make the most out of it. Clearly the fact that you were able to have all of these computers, do maintenance on them, learn the ins and outs of all of them, but then still manage to do this and gaming and everything else that you're doing, like that is just so impressive. And truly kudos to you. For being able to do all of that, and just to honestly be like really humble about it too. Yeah, truly. I said this is just so impressive, and apologies for the lack of words. I attempted to look up synonyms of cool, and Wikipedia is not helping. But
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's definitely a full-time job, keeping track of all this stuff. But it's just something I enjoy, and and I'm happy to keep doing it as long as I can. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I definitely, like I said, because I know you have many interests, and even though we were able to touch on each of them, I definitely did want to allow some time for it. If you would like to, to really dive into, anything that you would like, or anything that that we hadn't had a chance to touch on, because I definitely want to make the most out of this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I think I might go back to, as at the beginning of our conversation, I talked about this hardware description language class that I'm excited about, and I thought I might talk a little bit about why I'm so excited about that. And that's generally because in the fundamentals of computer engineering class that I first took, all of the work that we did, at least for the first half of the semester, was on a breadboard. We had chips, and we were using wires to connect them up in the correct sequences and to build the circuit that we were looking for. And that's good for small projects, but when you start looking at maybe a circuit that is a little too big to fit on one breadboard, and you're looking at 2 or 3 or 4 or 20 breadboards, it gets to be a little unwieldy. So in order to solve that problem, we turn towards hardware description language, which is essentially a computer programming language that allows you to kind of define not just the hardware, but how the hardware behaves, how you want it to behave. And then from there, you can kind of go into a couple different paths. You can take that code and have a computer generate a ASIC, or application-specific integrated circuit, which is essentially what you would do on a breadboard, just plot it out for you on a computer so you know exactly, how to fit the pieces of the puzzle together. Or you could put it onto an FPGA, which is a field programmable gate array, which is essentially a computer chip that contains all sorts of different smaller gates and circuits within within itself that your code sort of connects all those together, all those gates together to perform the task or function that you were designing for. FPGAs are really, really cool, and it's something that I'm looking forward to working with more, because the thing about it is that, if you design a product and you make a very specific circuit for it, once you've built that circuit physically, and put it into your product, you can't really change it. It's kind of stuck like that now. You're not gonna rip it open and desolder something and put something new back in there, really, for the most part. So it's kind of fixed in place. But the cool thing about FPGAs is that as long as you have access to the FPGA, you can upload new code and it'll act like a completely different circuit than the one before it. So that makes it really useful for a lot of sort of continuous integration of your products and continued development of different devices and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
That is really cool. And I was taking some notes and everything because I just found all this really interesting. I definitely, as the research enthusiast I am, definitely want to go back after this and do all the research into this, just because I haven't actually reached a sector yet in terms of doing my research. And I guess for those who know me, I quite literally do research into anything and everything. And so, yeah, this is just so fascinating. And so honestly, I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, but before you start being self-taught for all of this, I guess what really pushed you to even want to be self-taught? I mean, did you just look at stuff and want to know how it works? Because I'm just really curious, I guess, how all of this started.
Yeah, so I guess at least for me, it really boils down to the fact that, I like to learn at my own pace. I was actually homeschooled through middle school for the most part, and most of the way, and all the way through high school. So, that kind of really contributed to me developing, a real kind of not just self-taught, but more self-paced learning style. So at least for me, it was definitely more interesting when I could set my own challenges and goals for myself and then do the research to kind of achieve them. So that was definitely kind of the driving motivation behind that, at least for me. In terms of programming, I would think of a project that I wanted to do that would kind of touch on a concept that, maybe I hadn't learned or wanted to dive into more. And, I would go about looking and researching ways to kind of complete that project. So I was kind of always working on something by means of learning,
That is pretty fascinating. And so I guess I'll ask one of these last questions as we're gradually wrapping up and say, so for you, for someone who had been homeschooled for a good majority of your life, how's that really, I guess, affected the way that you approach things?
Yeah, so it's definitely it was definitely a bit of a transition, when I first went to college. Going to community college and starting off at least with virtual learning was definitely a bit more of a gradual easing into things, as it were. Not that I think I would have had too much trouble, with going straight into the classroom setting at college, but I definitely think that at least the courses that I took as a homeschool student really kind of developed sort of my time management and critical thinking in terms of, working on stuff myself and really working through problems. In college, it was definitely a little bit of a transition to, work on those group projects. Group projects are something that to this day I'm not the biggest fan of. I'd prefer to just sit down and get it taken care of myself, but I understand the necessity. I don't mind working in teams. I actually quite enjoy working in teams, but in terms of school projects, it's definitely easier to kind of sit down on my own time and knock it out rather than working on it sporadically.
Well, that is just so cool. And like I said, Zach, I've absolutely loved hearing all about your story, and definitely keep me in touch with all of the amazing projects you're doing, your time at VCU, and then even like the new computers you're building. Because honestly, this is just so cool and really fascinating. And I've just absolutely loved being able to have you on and really give us some insight into all of the great stuff you're doing. And yeah, definitely, like I said, keep in touch with all of this, because I really want to see how you progress over the years. I mean, especially considering that right now where you are in your junior year of college, this is how much you've already done. So I really can't wait to see what's to come in the future, honestly.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the future. I've really enjoyed kind of talking about all my different projects. If there's one thing that I love doing, it's talking about all my projects, because let me tell you, I've got a lot of them.
Yeah, definitely. And, you are always welcome back on here if you'd ever want to go a little bit more in depth to any one of them, since you definitely do have plentiful amount of projects. Like I said, it's just been so fascinating to even hear just these snippets of it. I mean, it's just been such a fun and rewarding conversation.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, of course. And so two things before I let you go. I did want to, first of all, if you have anywhere that for people who may be interested in continuing hearing your story, if you have anywhere online that people can follow you, that I definitely will allow time for you to go ahead and mention that as here. And if there's not anything, that is quite all right. I at least did want to provide you the opportunity.
Not a whole lot on the social media front. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, Zachary Edicola. But beyond that, not a whole lot for me in the social media space.
Well, that is definitely quite all right, and I hope everyone definitely goes and connects with you on LinkedIn, because that's just such a great resource for people to definitely get connected. And yeah, but before I let you go, I did want to, I guess, end out with this final question for you, so you can go ahead and close this out. So for people listening right here who may be interested in pursuing some of their passions or really wanting to take that next step, what is some advice or a life lesson or even favorite quote that you have for them to really end out this episode?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the biggest thing, at least for me, if there's something that you want to learn, something that you want to, kind of get your start in, or, something that you want to pursue, don't hesitate with it. I like we've talked about, have been a real self-paced learner. I enjoy researching and overcoming problems and challenges, setting goals for myself that way. So, if there's something that you want to pursue or learn, go for it, just reach for the stars, as it were.
Well, that is perfect, and it's a great way to definitely tie into all of the sci-fi and everything as well, and the aerospace. Wow, that actually really connected with anything and everything we discussed. But thank you so much, Zachary, for such a great conversation, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been a fantastic experience.
I'm glad to hear it. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and I'll catch you all next time. Take care. Bran'sTech has been created and produced by Brandon K. Hedgepeth of Tansen, LLC.